Hey, what's going on? It's your Radio Love, Deja Vu. You know, we always have your favorite celebs stopping by. And today, we have legends in the building. I'm so excited. Cast of Good Times, Bernadette Stanis,
Hello?
Ralph Carter, Jimmy Walker. How are you all?
We're fine. I'm great.
Content.
Content. And you, Jimmy, how are you?
Hey, I'm here.
He's hanging. Now, you're going to have this lean in.
I'm in there.
He's in there. All right, well, guys, I know you all are doing promo right now, but we're celebrating 50 years of Good Times.
Yes.
You have got to be kidding me.
I can't believe it.
Oh, my gosh. And it's such a part of the culture.
Yes, it is.
I mean, like, where would we be without Good Times? It's been, like, for real. So I want to talk to you. Let's rewind a little and talk about when you guys first heard about the opportunity for the TV show.
Well, for me, I was at a beauty pageant, and there was a manager there that saw me and said to my mom that we're looking for a teenager to be in this TV show, and gave her a card to go to CBS to meet Norman Lear. And at the time, they had already casted Jimmy Walker. So when I went in there, it was like thousands of girls. I'm like, okay, this is, whatever. And so I kept saying, something that my father always says to us is like, what's for you is for you, and no one can take it away from you.
That's
So I
true.
kept saying that in my head anyway. But anyway, when I got into the room where they were, it was Jimmy Walker standing there with that hat on his head.
Uh-oh.
That little dumb hat. And then it was, of course, Norman Lear sitting there with his white dumb hat. But anyway, then it's no dumbness there. But anyway, I saw the script and I asked them, could we improvise? And Jimmy and I did improvise, and we were pretty funny. And I think Norman liked that.
Okay. And Jimmy, what did you think when you were doing this with Bernadette? What did you think?
Well, you got to remember, I came from stand-up.
Yes.
So that's really where I came from. And I was working at the Improv. My friends, Edmonds and Curley, who were a team, they said they didn't have time to do this warm-ups on a TV show. They said, do you want to do a warm-up on a TV show? I said, I don't even know what a warm-up is on a TV show. And they said, you go over, it's like on 57th and 12th or wherever CBS was. And I said, I don't know what this warm-up thing is. She said, well, they're paying $800 to do it. I said, who do I have to kill to get in this thing?
$800 to do a warm up back then?
Yeah,
Wow.
I did a warm-up for a show called Carlucci's Apartment, which I already have copyrighted, but it's a great idea. Candy Azar, Jimmy Coco, Jose Perez was in it, and some other people were in it. Oh God, I can't remember their names, but they were great. And I did the warm-up, and after I finished, luckily I was able to garner a few laughs in the warm-up, and they said, Pat Kirkland's casting director said, man, you are funny. Do you want to be on a TV show? But you find out in this business that everybody's a liar.
Wait.
Yeah. So I said, well, whatever. They said, do you want to? So I just thought that they were liars. So I said, yeah, I'll be on it. And I walked away. The next week they come back with Norman Lear. Luckily, I was able to garner a few laughs on that show. And Norman says, you could be on this TV show. We'd love to have you. I said, yeah, I'll be on it. I thought, a liar. Who's this guy? So then they said, we want to send you a contract. So I thought they were such liars. I work at the Improv all the time. I just gave them the Improv's address because they're liars. So I said, okay. Now, Edmonds and Curley again said, we're doing this thing in the Midwest, okay? And we want you to do these dates in the Midwest. They said they've never seen black people there. It's going to be great for you. So I went and I did that. And I'm in Fargo, North Dakota doing some college dates. And
Fargo?
The Fargo Dome. It was fabulous. And so I'm doing that. I get a call from J.D. Joe from Norman Lear's office. She says, where are you? I said, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota doing dates. She said, well, you should be in Los Angeles because you're on a TV show. I said, what TV show? She said, Good Times. She said, never heard of it. So they fly. I go to the airport as I'm flying through, and I said, do you have a ticket for Jimmy Walker? They went, yeah. So I hopped on the plane. My friend Steve Landisberg was doing a show you guys don't remember. Bobby Darin was a big star. He had a TV show, and he was a day player on that show. And I said, we got to do some stand-up tonight. So we went to this comedy store. We're doing stand-up. We go to the Laugh Factory. We're doing stand-up. I go to bed, wake up in the morning, phone call, J.D. Joe. She says, where are you? I said, I'm in the hotel. They got a hotel for me. I don't even know who these people are. She said, we're the people. So they said, go downstairs and get a script. I said, what script? I went downstairs. I got a script, walked over to the place. We're reading the script. Norman Lear's like where Ralph is on my left-hand side over here.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're reading the script, I go, well, this script sucks. What's this about? What's happening here? And Norman Lear says, okay. So we finished, and him and Alan Manning, who's our executive producer, walked over and said, if you have a problem with the script, keep it on like a low level. Just come to us. Don't speak it in front of the other 50 people here. So I went and I started doing the show, and I was always coming up with stuff because I was lucky enough to be able to make enough money where I could hire writers to write for my stand-up act. So I had people on my writing staff who I would say, look, you guys are not always going to be writing for me. You're going to be writing for TV shows because you guys are going to be stars. And at that time, I had Louis Anderson, Jay Leno, David Letterman, Byron Allen.
They were writing for you for your stand-up?
Yes, they were writing for me. They just had started. They just had started being in show business.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had them writing, and I said, write a script as much as we can, and we'll rewrite it here. And we're doing a show called Good Times. What I want you to do is rewrite this script and see what you guys can come up with. And every week I had, as Mitchell Walters, one of my great writers, would say, we had 31 writers that I had working for me. And they would say, what's going to happen is pretty soon we're going to be at Dodger Stadium with all your writers going, anyone with any economy stuff, report to second base.
That is interesting. What a fascinating story of how you all got started. But wait, Ralph, I want to hear your story because weren't you doing Broadway or plays or something? Give us the backstory.
Right. First and foremost, good afternoon to your listeners in the tri-state area. I also like to thank the good vibrations I have with Jimmy Walker and Bernadette. 50 years is literally a half of a century.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
When I was in the series Good Times, I had just completed my 6th Broadway play, my 5th Broadway musical. Norman Lear negotiated with Robert Nemiroff, who was Lorraine Hansberry's husband. She had written A Raisin in the Sun, the dramatic play. However, by the time I met up with Norman Lear, I was in the musical version of Raisin.
Oh, okay.
What he did was do on 2 particular times. He came to Washington, D.C. We were touring at the Arena Stage, and that is where I first met him, along with my mother, Miss Lucille Carter, and at that time, my manager, Miss Selma Rubin. We had a dialogue, and then I was asked to come to California to meet a wonderful woman named Jane Murray. Jimmy Walker has mentioned Pat Kirkland.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were deeply involved in the hiring system of getting the actors on particular sitcoms. Norman Lear at this time was a multi-genius and still is. He had Maude, All in the Family, Good Times, The Jeffersons, all running simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So to become a part of that particular adventure with Tandem Productions was wonderful for me as a young man.
And so you met him, but who referred you? Did he see you on stage and say, hey, listen, I want this kid? Or someone was like passing the word along, you got to see this young man?
I know for a fact that Jane Murray had seen many reviews of the work I had been doing throughout my early career. And by virtue of that, Norman physically flew out from Los Angeles to see me in Washington, D.C.
That is
So
amazing.
Jane Murray definitely played a pivotal part in hiring me as well.
Oh my gosh. All of these stories are just fascinating.
But he was already known, you know.
He was already a star. Already a star.
So the first
I had
year he was
achieved,
the top.
I had won every major award in American theater, from the Drama Desk Award to Theater World Award.
Come on.
Tony nomination, and also Grammy for Best Album Raisin in 1974.
Come on.
And the funniest thing, that my real brother replaced him in Raisin.
Oh my gosh. Now that's just too synergistic.
I know.
That is too synergistic.
That was really true.
Did you give him any tips when he replaced you?
No, Talbot is an actor in his own right. He didn't need my tips. He had his own style of playing the character role of Travis.
Love it. All right, so take us to the scene where you guys were on stage, when you guys were doing this before a studio audience. What were some of those shows like? Because you hear the laughter in the background. We don't know if that was all laugh track or if that was people going in. What was it like on the stage when you guys were filming the actual TV show?
Well, we had an audience of 250 people each show.
Good night.
So that was real. It was like a stage play.
And what happened if you messed up in the thing? Did we go back?
We
or
had
did you
a
have
wonderful director, Herb Kinworth at the time, and Herb was so professional. He would say, excuse me, but there's a little glitch in the booth. So, Esther, would you take that line back from there? He would never embarrass the actors.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Because some directors we've heard about, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
And
usually, excuse me, Bernadette, usually you say Good Times was taped before a
studio audience.
So most of the laughter that we had was totally authentic. We never used canned laughter. If you hear people howling in the background, that's organic humans at the show. As Bernadette did mention, they came in droves of 250. What we did during the process of the week, we did 2 performances. We had a 5 o'clock production, same show, but then we had a dinner break. And then we had an 8 o'clock production.
250 people.
Our days were long. So overall,
So it's
we
different
had 500
audience.
people who would come
Of
to
the same
see
show?
Uh-huh.
So they'd see
exact show.
part.
No, they would see the whole
same
show.
but both shows were combined and edited together. So the best of both shows were done that
Oh,
way.
look at that. Look, we got some behind the scenes. And we didn't know all this.
Sometimes you would get some bloopers that we would have to take a break from laughter.
Really?
Because oftentimes we had to read those scripts first, and whether they were pro or con, and mostly a lot of them were con. But the and when I say con, it's the ones that we were able to weave and work our way through and fix it. Normally, it had the vision and the capacity to come in and fix scripts, along with Alan Manning's. These men were monumental in the work that they did on behalf of our show.
Wow. All right, Jimmy. So talk to us about the character JJ, which became like a huge standout. Give us some insight into what you were thinking about when you came up with this. Well, leaned into the character that was written, and talk to us about Dynamite and Cello and all that.
Well, being a stand-up, you just are constantly in motion, fluid. It's always fluid. You guys got great comedy clubs here, and you got you got downtown the Cellar, which is the main place here in town. And if you want to see good comedy, even though I'm not allowed in, I'm bigger than that. You should go there. It's a good place. They got a lot of good places in town, and guys are always riffing on stage. So when you get on stage, you're always trying something new. So when I did the Dynamite thing, that was, I didn't think about it at all, but John Rich, our lovely director who directed the Jackie Gleason show, which is The Honeymooners, and Dick Van Dyke show with Mary Tyler Moore, he said, I love that Dynamite thing. I said, what Dynamite thing? He said, the way you just did it, he said, I want you to do it bigger. And I said, I don't get it. So he showed me what he thought should work. And I said, you just want me to stand on stage and say Dynamite? He says, yes. I said, no. He says, this is going to make this show, if you want to believe that. And I said, I don't think so. He said, yes, it will. I said, look, John, people are not that stupid. They're not going to go for that. And John Rich says, yes, they will.
And so you went back in and you did it.
And Norman hated it. He absolutely hated it. John loved it. And that was a total divide. John Rich says, if we don't do that Dynamite thing, I'm off the show.
Did he really?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so what was the press? Why was he pushing it so hard? Why was
he thought
going
it
for
was
that?
going to work, that people were going to buy it. He said, if people are going to buy it, it's going to be a hook. Norman Lear says, I absolutely hate it. If it's done, I'm off the show. So it was 2 different, because John also directed All in the Family. So he was doing Norman a favor by coming in doing this new show. And he said, I'm not doing you any more favors. This thing is going to happen. So we did it, and at first we did like 3 a show. And Norman says, out of the question. And John Rich says, okay. So we negotiated 1 a show. And it became like Michael Buffer from the boxing thing. I don't know, you probably never watched boxing.
No.
Well, Michael Buffer is a big-time sportscaster, and he's the guy who does Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
So if you ever watch a fight, you probably are too dainty to watch a fight. You don't watch it.
I've seen fights with my father, and my husband. Okay.
And if you look at when like Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting, they would go, yeah, he's 145. He's won this title. He's knocked out his last 25 opponents, and the crowd would start building. He's killed his last 2 guys. He is the greatest. He's the one and only for guys all over America and throughout the world. Ladies and gentlemen, and you could hear the crowd go, let's get ready to rumble. And he only makes $10,000 every time he says it.
Only.
Yeah, that's all. And that's what the Dynamite thing, because people would feel it. We had a guy, TJ Carter, who was a great guy. And TJ Carter's part of my posse on the show. And he would write these little rhymes, and it would always be something stupid. I say, TJ, we'll go with it, whatever it is. And it would always come in there. They would always come in with their little gang thing and hang out and whatever. So T.J. Carter was a big part of that, too. And that's how it happened. It became bigger and bigger. And Norman just hated it. And then John Rich was able to go back and say, I told you, Norman.
Did people come up to you saying that back in the day? They still do it?
No, they really don't, because being a stand-up is totally different than being an actor. I'm not an actor. I'm not a good actor. I don't act well. I don't enjoy it, but whatever. So being in the stand-up business, as I was still to this day, we had too many real heavy stand-ups to really we had Steve Martin, we had Richard Pryor, we had Whoopi Goldberg, we had Bette Midler, we had Pat Benatar. So people were not really choked up about one little guy, Gabe Kaplan, Freddie Prinze. People go, do your act and let's roll. That's it.
Well, it's rolling all throughout history, because I know folks still like to say that. Folks still talk about the episodes. Bernadette, give us one of your favorite episodes.
Well, I would say The African Prince for me was one of my favorite ones. eBay. Okay, tell me, eBay, that I'm going to be the only wife.
Yes.
No, you're not. I'm high five, and you're the last one. I'm like, oh, I don't think that's going to work.
And is that one of the most popular ones that people remember from you?
Yeah,
as
that
well?
and the wedding.
Of course.
The wedding when, Michael sang You and I.
Of course. So let's talk about it, Ralph. What was one of your favorites?
Okay, first of all, the brilliant actor who played eBay, his name is Johnny Seka.
Oh, okay.
He's a megastar. He's Senegalese from Africa. And coming on our show, he brought a wonderful level of authenticity on behalf of how he related to Bernadette. However, I think one of my favorite episodes was what I call it my coming-of-age episode, when I was involved in a gang against my will. However, I was somewhat extorted into the group. By virtue of that, they attacked my mother, and I went off. So that was me defending the character as the role played as Florida. But the other young guys that I worked with, they were a brilliant bunch of contemporary artists that were on the show at that time.
And you had several times you were able to express yourself in song and dance and everything. We still remember all those.
Yes. I'm very glad, because that allowed me to showcase that particular aspect of my talents as a vocal and singing artist.
Right.
But some of the shows that we did do when we had those talent shows were big fun.
I can imagine.
I got a chance
think
to
we did
dance
about,
on
we did
it,
about
right?
three or four of them throughout the tenure that we had.
Yeah.
But when we knew a specific show that was going to have that type of element to it, it really felt good.
That
And the
was fun.
audience gave us tremendous
I'm
feedback.
sure.
Yeah.
They gave us tremendous feedback.
And Jimmy, what about you? What was one of your favorite episodes that you filmed or people remember?
Well, because I was stand up again. I didn't see that many episodes, because I really
You didn't watch it?
I was working then. I was working at that time. I was touring with Donna Summer.
Oh.
So we had Donna Summer, and we had the Pointer Sisters and Tavares. That was the show, and it was. I mean, Donna was like unbelievable. But one of my
Bad girl. Okay, sorry.
That show just like. It was a disco era, and the audience just lifted. And the Pointer Sisters, I think their problem was they were so good, and they did so many things. You didn't know if they were R&B singers. You didn't know if they were pop singers. You didn't know if they were country. They were just so good. And then Tavares, I mean, one of the best dancing, moving, and they had Chico in the group, a guy named Chico and Butch, and they were good-looking guys, and the women, oh my God, it just went crazy.
But what was your first one you liked on Good Times?
My thing on the Good Times thing was me and Bernadette. Bernadette brought a friend home to teach her how to speak French, and I wanted to, go out with her. And I'm trying to speak the French, the broken French, like, Bon Ami and, Eiffel Tower. I was trying to get in there, just like I am now, always begging. And the girl was like, please stop. So finally, justice does happen. And I get a chance to go out with the girl. Now, they had written something that was fabulous, but I came up with another thing.
Okay.
And nobody believed in it. So we started betting on this line to work, okay? So Norman says, I don't get it. I said, Norman, it doesn't mean anything. It's just energy your moment. So what happened was we get to this line, and I finally get a chance to go out with it. It shows you how far back it goes. I said, well, see you on Tuesday night at the Kool and the Gang concert. Que sera, sera, Bon Ami, and cognac. I'm trying to get the French words in. Okay? And the chick goes, yeah, so she's all happy. And it killed. It totally killed. And Norman Lear came up to the office. He says, I like Jimmy Walker, but I don't think a lot of his stuff makes much sense. But this stuff worked. I will never question Jimmy Walker again. It's fabulous.
Well, that's good. They gave you guys leeway to be able to, work within the script, because I've heard stories of different people. You can't do that. You have to say exactly what's that. But it led to big cultural moments as well.
Right.
And so that part of the part of the show where it does lead to the cultural moments, the impact was just like, I don't know, it was just impressive. And I wanted to know how you all felt, because sometimes you all tackled different episodes and different topics that may have been at that time a little not taboo, but pushing the edge.
Well, that's what was so wonderful about the show, because Norman wrote it and he always pushed a little bit.
Yes.
He was always, pushing to the edge of it. And I think that's why the show lasted for 50 years, because he dealt with what was real and he pushed it, and he was not shy about that. And so it was so different that, it related to so many different generations.
Right.
But a lot of things that were done then cannot be done now.
And you know that. But the fact that it was done and it's still being seen now on TV One on Saturdays, 12 noon, celebrating 50 years. You guys are just, I don't know, I was so excited, and everybody was excited when I said that, the cast of Good Times is coming in. They're going to be talking about it because of the mark that you all have had in the culture.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
what were you going to say,
keep
Ralph?
in mind that 50 years is half of a century.
Right.
And therefore, to actually calculate
someone's
that
home.
matter of time, and knowing throughout those particular decades, people continue to give us the value we deserve, and we in return reciprocate our respect for them. Because most of the time, between myself, Jimmy Walker, and Bernadette Stannis, we're bombarded with positive energy.
Right.
And it's very negative energy that repulses me from people who are so-called artists. Because you have to remember, you got to treat people the way you want to be treated. So most of the time in my life, I'm always bombarded with positive energy. So I would be a wreck of a man if I didn't know how to just at least do a common courtesy and say hello.
Absolutely. Now, okay, from the positive to the tension, I heard that back in the day there was some tension on the set sometimes between cast members and characters. Give us a situation that, worked out, but it was still like kind of tense. Anybody?
I will. I would say this. Esther Roll always wanted the show to have a quality about it. Now, I wouldn't say there was tension like that. They kind of blew it out of perspective. What they were trying to do is making sure that even though Jimmy is a comedian and he delivers beautiful lines and he keeps us going, she didn't want any buffoonery.
Right.
Okay, meaning when they would write the show, they wrote it in the beginning where he would find things. You know what I mean? The first couple of you found that. But
really?
Yes. But
I gotta
that
go back and look.
Yeah. And that was stealing. And she did not want that. He was a promising artist and things like that.
Absolutely.
So she kind of wanted to keep it sort of not like that. Don't give that. But you have to understand that in some families, even in my family, I had a brother that made my mom laugh all the time. I mean, he's a genius, and he's a pastor right now. But he would always do silly things to make my mom laugh. So you look at it like that too. There's a character in the family that keeps you going.
And how was it when Esther Roll and John Amos left? I mean, did you guys feel like intense pressure of like, okay, the parents are gone out of the house now, we got to really revamp and rejudge everything?
Well,
we literally had to reinvent the characters again. Although we stayed to the core value of that creation of those characters that Eric Monty and Michael Levin created.
Yes.
We also had to deal with the fact that the multiple writers that we had were multi-talented men in their own right. So sometimes we did have issues over scripts because we're dealing with people who also have different cultural backgrounds, who came with baggage for what they have thought about black people because they had not worked with us as artists at that time.
Right.
From my experience. Please keep in consideration that I was also a minor at that time. So any grievances that I had with scripts, Jimmy Walker has always been my advocate.
Wow.
Bernadette has always looked out for me, but the final word usually came when I went to Esther, should I have had issues with scripts. And they then, in fact, were resolved because I was able to make my appeal to the adults.
And Jimmy, what about you?
Well, I'm not one of those kind of guys. I'm used to doing things in flux. The line is never the line. You could always make it better. So I'm always trying. And then, like I said, the guys I work with, like a Gary Shandling, I mean, this guy would come in with 2 notebooks full of jokes every day, 7 days a week. So it would upset me because I go, I can't write like that. It's like or if I listen to a guy like Stephen Wright, who totally pisses me off because he writes such incredible stuff. So, and you just have to really constantly be ready for change. Never get locked in. It's never the line. Never.
Never get locked in. Okay. That's actually a hustler's tip. Speaking of which, you guys, we do something on the show and we talk about, hustling and making the money and extending your brand and extending your career longevity. Give us a couple of tips on how you all have stayed popular throughout the years, because people are still like, we know your faces every time we see you. So tell us something about what has kept you in the top of the mind.
Okay. What has kept me is the fact that I have different things that I like to do. Like I'm a writer, I'm a dancer also, but I'm a writer. And I decided that I wanted to do more writing. So after traveling with different plays and things like that, I met a lot of people, heard a lot of stories, and I started to write. That's what I wanted to do. So my first book I wrote was about relationships. And the second book was about finance. It was Situations 101, relationships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
Then finances 101, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was basic financial stuff because in relationships, if the finances is not right, you're going to have some problems.
Come on.
Okay? So I had to do that. And then, of course, I had to take care of my mother for several years as a caregiver. And she had Alzheimer's. So I went through that process. But about 5 years after she passed away, I wrote a book on that, meaning The Last Night, A Caregiver's Journey Through Transition and Beyond.
Wow.
Right. And I'm in a process right now of writing another book, which will be out in the fall. And it's called Good Times, Ain't We Lucky We Got 'Em? My Memoirs of It.
Come on, author. I love it.
It's at my website, Thelma of Good Times. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Might as well. Shameless plug. That's what it's all about. And Ralph, what about you?
I think, first of all, from both Bernadette and Jimmy Walker, I learned excellent work ethic. Jimmy is a consummate professional. He would have the script memorized before the weekend was over.
Oh, yes, and
Wow.
never made a mistake.
Jimmy had a tendency to read the script, come back, do his work wherever he was
The
touring,
only one.
and on time to work, but he knew his lines. So he became the blueprint for how I thought I would approach my work as an artist. And that is to always not just be on time, because Janet Jackson and I, God bless her heart, she was the ray of sunshine in my life when she appeared on our production.
Of course.
I had been the only child on the set for all those years, and I was usually a very lonely little boy. I did have an abundance of love. Aside from working with Good Times, I was embraced by my biological family, and they assisted me in keeping grounded. My mother said, "You are no better than anyone else, and that everybody else matters." So when you approach life like that, you tend to resonate with people on the same accord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we don't get along, then I say, if there's no contact, there's no conflict. No contact,
No contact, no
no
conflict.
We know we don't like each other. You stay in your lane,
Uh-huh.
I'll stay in mine. But usually the most enjoyable part of my personal life is that I meet a lot of positive people.
We love it. You got really good energy, really good energy. Jimmy, now outside of your stand-up, you do radio as well, right?
I have been in radio probably, matter of fact, I have a lot on this station, BLS.
Uh-huh.
We've gone so far back. Keep in mind, I was at LIB with, I don't know whatever his name is now, Gary Bird.
Yes!
Yeah, Gary Bird came down from UFO. I was in that as a young cat. Gary Bird, Crocker came down, and I was with Crocker every time he got fired, every time he was arrested, every time he whatever. It was a whole different thing. Radio was different in those days, where you had personalities. We don't have that anymore.
Right. It's a whole different vibe.
Because of Stern. See, I was in the beginning of Stern, and when he was fighting with Imus, and when they were at NBC. And that was a big deal. We were at MCA, which we were home of the good guys.
Uh-huh.
My funniest story about being at ABC with Bruce and those cats was the black people were always complaining anyway. So they were complaining about black people being on CHR, which is contemporary hit radio. So they said, get some black jocks, because we had Dan Ingram and all those guys, and Joe O'Brien, everybody. So they said, okay, because we had LIB, we had WWRL.
Yep.
And the big deal was you could not be ethnic in your speak pattern. So I went to the new school for a year to learn how to speak better more English, to speak whatever. And so the funny thing, they bring in Chuck Leonard. And Chuck Leonard was a guy who spoke English, regular. And they said, bring in a guy, this is a black guy. So they bring in Chuck Leonard, and the black people go, well, he doesn't sound black. Why is he on? Get him off. And then after that, we brought in at WNEW with Jonathan Schwartz and those guys, and Richard Neer and all those cats who were young. They brought in all those guys. So then they brought in Roscoe. And Roscoe was like the coolest cat, man. He was a black guy. They hated him because he used to read Gabron. He used to read Shakespeare on the air, and they go, this guy stinks. He don't have any rhymes. He don't have anything. Because in those days, you had to have a production of a show.
Yeah.
Frankie Crocker would have, he was the baddest cat. He was crazy and a little ridiculous, but he would always open, New York, New York, welcome, the love man. Do it, Frankie, do it. Ding, dong, ding, ding, ding. And it was just the coolest thing in the world. And in those days, we had engineers, so he would always be just throwing cues. Now, do it. Bang. And he would always close. The great thing he used to close with, he'd close it and say, Frankie, he'd have a girl, please don't go. Please don't. Honey, time is up. I'm going to be out for a little while. Do it, Frankie. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'll be over in 15 minutes. Then he have another girl call. They have a voice. Frankie, when are you coming over? Well, I'm going to get off the show. I got a meeting, but I'll be over in like a half hour to be able to. Do it, Frankie. Do it.
They don't let you do any kind of fun stuff like that anymore. Unfortunately, radio has changed. It's a lot more corporate, whole other thing. Were you ever in Norfolk, Virginia?
I was in Norfolk,
at WRAP.
Virginia. Yes.
My dad told me that. He's like, I said, I'm going to ask Dad. I don't think you know what you're talking about.
We had a guy, Rick Floyd, crazy Rick Floyd was on there. I worked that station. I did radio. I did music. I did political radio too.
I remember.
Yeah, I did political radio, and it's so funny because it's a complex. So you have R&B, you have pop, you have heavy metal. I always say, the story I always tell is how to get fired. If you're in radio, you will get fired.
You will get fired.
You'll get fired. You will go. And we had guys who did heavy metal. Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Metallica. And I never forget because you had to have a key card to get in. So we're coming in all together at like 6 o'clock in the morning. They're the morning cats, right? The crazy zoo crew guys were right behind us. You do the zoo crew with Rich and Rob in the morning. Zoo crew with Phil, the crazy intern. They come in. And so the metal guys came in and they're talking, see, we're going to play some Ozzy and then we're going to do something with AC/DC. So they put their key card in and the key card doesn't work.
Uh-oh.
So the security guy comes out and says, are you the guys from whatever, K-Jock or whatever it was? Yeah, we're going to do a show. Look, fellas.
It's not happening.
You've been relieved of duty. Here's your stuff. They give them a box. That's your last check. Thanks for coming and thanks for all your service. Goodbye.
That's radio for you. That's radio.
We're done. It's
right.
like over.
All right, so let's get back to TV now. Would you guys do like a semi-reboot? Would you guys go back on and do something on camera?
We definitely would.
Have they explored any of those conversations with you guys?
No, but we are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're thinking about something. You know, with the animation, I want to say that before that animation came out, you know, Jimmy Walker presented to them a cartoon of us about 5 years before that.
Are you serious? And what happened with that?
Nothing.
So that's when you have to take the ball in your own hands and start maybe producing a couple of
Right.
episodes.
Right.
Again, this comes from the fact of doing stand-up. Everywhere you go, I go to do stand-up. People go, you guys should have a reboot. You guys should be together. Okay. So I said, oh, my God, I'm tired of hearing about this. And what I realized, I said, I think there's a thing for an animated reboot of our show because they don't want to see us like we are now. They want to see us like we were then.
Some people do.
And well, some people, but it's like The Simpsons. The Simpsons have been on 35 years. They're the same Simpsons.
Right.
You know, Family Guy's been on 15 years. They're the same Family Guy. So I said, why not animation? So I wrote an animation show and I sent it over to Brent Miller. I sent it over to him and he liked it, but he said, in his mind, he says, but I don't want Jimmy Walker and the cast to be in it. I'm going to say this. So he said, Sony, we have writers here, and we're kind of developing our own show. And you just go, oh, I see. So I knew I was in trouble because I said, I took it to a couple of people that Bernadette knows that she's not enthused about, and they said, we love the show. We love the show. Do you own the show? I go, no. They go, well, then you're in trouble because they don't need you. And that's exactly what happened. I took it to my good friend, the great Byron Allen, and Byron Allen said,
what did Byron say?
Byron says, I love the show. I would do it myself. Do you own the show? And I go, no.
I just think we have to change the title of it into something else.
Yeah. But still factor in a good time with such and such and such or something like that.
I think
because that's
the
fair.
only way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Byron said, I would do it right now. I have the money to do it. I'll do it. But he says, you don't own it.
Well, we're going to own the next one.
Exactly. Ownership, create your
take it
own.
right back to Byron Allen.
And make it happen. Have some continuous good times.
Right.
Now, have you guys kept in touch all throughout the years?
Yes, we have.
We've never stopped being friends. We've never stopped being family.
That's it right there. Never stop being family. We love it. And you guys are a part of our family forever and future.
And you know, Jimmy is right. When we travel, people always say, are you going to do a reboot? Are you going to do a reboot? Because I think that the way the show ended, it didn't satisfy the audience.
Right. We wanted a little more.
Yeah, you want to see a closure. Or you want to see what happened.
What happened next.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming. And we can't wait to see what happens next with you all as we move forward, maybe with a cartoon, maybe with a reality show, maybe.
Not bad.
And we're also grateful that your listening audience has kept Good Times relevant and not a relic.
Thank you.
Ooh, relevant and not a relic.
Yeah,
okay,
50 years. We just thank you guys.
Thank
and we love
you.
our fans.
Thank you, BLS family.
Yes.
Perfect. That was great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.